Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to talk to you guys today about a new thing that came out yesterday, March the 20th, 2023, where Florida Governor Ron DeSantis introduced legislation banning CBDCs. Now, what are CBDCs? They are called central bank digital currencies. They are essentially the crypto equivalent of the United States dollar, meaning that the United States Treasury could issue on blockchains current cryptocurrencies that are backed by the U.S. government. In essence, these types of things would basically give a level of legitimacy to cryptocurrency, as well as making cryptocurrency standardized and make it so that the infrastructure of it is regulated to a degree, which would be needed at this point. And it actually would have a lot of different benefits. But before I go into the benefits of why something like this would be good, let me go over why Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is doing this, because he never does anything that is actually good. It's all showboating and making people's lives worse. So basically, he introduced the legislation from behind a podium with the phrase "Big Brother's digital dollar" plastered across it. He skewered the technology as a vehicle that could lead to government overreach and pave the way for financial surveillance. I want to remind everybody that the NSA already is able to have complete access to all of our financials as is, without warrants. Privacy is dead. Secondarily, most of our banking, if it's not done with cash, has a traceable paper trail. So if you use a credit or a debit card as your primary means of getting paid and paying for things, this doesn't apply to you. You're already nailed. The two people that they cite, one of which is Decrypt Shapeshift founder Eric Voorhees, called CBDCs Orwellian. He would call them that simply because if the Treasury decided to issue its own U.S. Treasury-backed cryptocurrency, it would basically wipe most, if not all, other cryptos that aren't also backed by governments or trusted institutions off the map. Point blank. The other was whistleblower Edward Snowden, who is a man personally that I respect, has called them crypto-fascist currencies, and honestly, I can't blame him for believing that, given his experience with the federal government and the United States government, and seeing what and with what he basically exposed. I'm not surprised with this take at all, but to call like a CBDCs, like these digital currencies issued by the government, as crypto-fascist, I get it, but at the same time, our money is already digital as is. Like, most of the money in our bank accounts and being sent to places through credit cards and stuff like that are less physical dollars and more actual just numbers on screens. So I get it, but we're already at a point where the U.S. government can just yoink our shit with a keystroke. So we're kind of already in hell in that regard. So I said at the top of this that ultimately something like this would be very, very valuable. And why would that be valuable? Well, let me ask you guys a question. Why is Cash App popular and most people use Cash App? Not everybody, but most people that aren't living in suburbs, that live in poor or urban areas, they use Cash App. Why? Because Cash App does not require you to have a bank account tied to your account. Venmo does. Venmo popped off because suburbanites and college kids needed something different. They wanted something new that felt interesting. And Venmo was that for a while because it had that social aspect. And then it's sort of like, at least as far as I'm concerned, fell off a cliff. Cash App, by contrast, just to pull up my version of the app, and I use both. I have a bank account, so to tie to it, has the ability to take in your paycheck. It has the ability to have a savings vault for you to save money. It allows you to buy Bitcoin if that's something you'd want, and what I would think is more pertinent, it allows you to buy stocks, even fractional, for as little as $1. They can file your taxes for you. You can get a loan. You can get a loan through Cash App. You can scan checks into Cash App. You deposit money at physical locations and have it be sent to your Cash App account. It is, for all intents and purposes, functions for many people as a bank. Why? Because it doesn't have mandatory minimums. Because when you are living literally paycheck to paycheck, there are times where you just do not have money in your bank account. And because you do not have money in your bank account, and for whatever reason you don't have you getting money from multiple sources because you're poor and you don't have direct deposits set up up to a certain threshold, you aren't always able to have access to those banks. And you also usually have to have a certain amount of money put into the bank at the start, and not everybody has $100 laying around just to throw into a bank to open a bank account. I also want to remind everybody that cryptocurrency, even with its fall from grace over the last year and a half, is still a multi-billion-dollar industry with lots of people looking to make lots of money from this new marketplace because of how unregulated it is. If the U.S. Treasury released a cryptocurrency that allowed people to buy and trade this stuff using infrastructure that already exists, and also because it is federally backed and it is safe in that regard, infrastructure that is built around it will be also viewed as safe, more so than things like Coinbase and Binance and all those other things that just shenanigans are about. And so, frankly, the idea that Ron DeSantis would try and ban use of a currency like this in the state before it even exists is actually less about, the financial freedoms of the Floridians and blocking overreach by the government. Because if it was an issue of government overreach, Florida would issue its own currency, which it doesn't do because it's stupid and it's against the Constitution. And the only reason a bill like this isn't challenged is because cryptocurrency is still so new that there aren't laws protecting it. I would hope that laws and rulings that are done would put federally backed and distributed cryptocurrency, like from the U.S. Treasury, on the same level as a U.S. dollar, with all the respect it has, and that would also basically force any states to accept it. And you want to know the big reason as to why Ron DeSantis doesn't want to do this? It's because the Fed since 2016 has explored this idea, and more recently, Joe Biden has said that he wants to get the Fed more in line with a cryptocurrencies being used in the future. The other thing is that China launched there's a xenophobic aspect to it too, because China launched its own CBDC, again the digital currencies, called the digital yuan last year, and supporters of a US CBDC have referenced to suggest that the US risks falling behind on the technology, while critics simply say it illustrates China's continued capital controls. Now, don't get me wrong, China absolutely has a chokehold on their economy. It allows them to do some pretty awesome things, but also leaves a significant amount to be desired in terms of dissent and individual thought and a lot of personal freedoms. Their Sesame credit system basically gimps many types of passions and art, especially if those things aren't domestic. But at the end of the day, Ron DeSantis is looking to become president of the United States. This is just another example of how he is willing to GIMP, long-term, positive things, as well as things that would actually help millions of Americans, in this case the unbanked, people who don't have access to a bank account for whatever reason. And while I think Cash App has done a pretty okay job of servicing those people, I frankly don't have a whole lot of confidence in a company built, developed, and promoted by Jeff Bezos that doesn't have FDIC insurance for people's balances. As much as I'd like to move my stock portfolio over from SoFi, because, they're looking a little rickety right now, to Cash App, I have to move over to Charles Schwab, because while I'm not able to buy things as immediately as I want on there, at least they're an institution and my money is not going to be taken away from me. Regardless, I'm rambling at this point. At the end of the day, Ron DeSantis is a fucking moron, and I think that the possibility of the U.S. Treasury releasing their own cryptocurrency would release a lot of regulations into the space to make everything more stable, as well as to actually start building the infrastructure around these things needed to, frankly, offer more, in better ways of utilizing our money. But regardless, have a wonderful night, everybody, and I will talk to you guys next time.